Welcome to Talk Show Episode 6. It is September 13th, 2 days after that notorious big event in our history. And what a 2 weeks we've had. China shows us how big bad they are. Trump's death is a rumor, and I'm not even going to touch the Charlie Kirk situation. Today, at least. Goodness, I have quite a bit to talk to you about today. Our main news story is related to China puffing up like some sort of puffed up pufferfish. So why are they puffing? Well, major military parade in Beijing basically commemorates the 80th anniversary of World War II's end. And your boy, Xi Jinping, was joined by Putin and Kim Jong-un, showing off that anti-Western main character energy, right? Big team up. The summit in Tianjin also rolled out some new economic and energy initiatives with allies such as Russia and India, positioning China's model as a growing alternative to Western influence. Wowie, wowie. So Trump, of course, feels incredibly left out since all the cool dictators over on the east side of the planet, which is relative, by the way, decided to not invite him. Good. Anyway, so why does this matter? Well, if you haven't heard, many of China's biggest customers are American soybean farmers, and the soybean farmers are not doing so hot. Okay, so I'm going to play this clip for you. As I was saying, if you were uncertain about why the whole China situation is such a big deal, I'm going to play this bad boy for you. You don't have to watch the whole thing. As you can see, it's 2 minutes, 29 seconds. But if you weren't aware, I think this is information you should hear and know, because many of us don't really grasp what's going on.
Very dire situation. September's upon us. Harvest is starting in the deep south, and we have 0 bushels of soybeans on the books to be sold to China for this current crop that's about to come out of the field. Historically, over the last 5 years, about a third of soybean sales to China would be booked. China amounts to 25% of our total U.S. soybean crop. So that would be 8 or 9% of the whole U.S. crop would normally be on the books with China right now, and we have 0.
Wow.
That is alarming. The farm economy as a whole is struggling. Inflation has caused our cost of production to rise drastically on every front. Commodity prices, in particular soybeans, are down about 50% from where they were 3 years ago. And our numbers are deeply in the red.
Okay, I'm pausing really quickly. Keep that 3 years ago thing in your head, because this is really important for every one of us to remember. Trump basically screwed these folks to an incredible degree in his first term. Now, that was longer than 3 years ago, but you're going to see this come up. You're going to see him reference some of the past issues. And basically, China was forced to sort of move on and find the soybeans elsewhere back in Trump's term. And they have slowly tried to build back up that trade relationship over the years. And it's been incredibly difficult because sometimes when you tell another country to F off, they don't come back to the table when you're like, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. That other guy who was leading the country. Anyway, more on this clip. Let's go.
And we send this letter to President Trump because we've been talking for months about needing to have sales in place, a deal in place, a phase 2 type agreement that has purchase commitments along with a level playing field on trade with no tariffs. And we haven't had anything happen, unfortunately. And our appeal to President Trump and his administration is make soybeans a priority in any trade negotiations that are taking place. Soybeans are the #1 agriculture export to China. And in the last trade war, it was 71% of the losses that we had as American farmers.
71% of the losses of American farmers from the soybean crop in the first trade war with China. That was under Trump's first term. That's why I wanted to call that out before. Let's let this man continue.
And they're critical.
Yeah, so if we look at, and we're going to divide. So I'll stay with grain and oilseeds because that's what I do day to day, but I just have to say one thing about livestock. For livestock folks, it's a good we're in good world for them right now. So I'd love to be able to have as good a world that they're having in GNO, but we just don't. And so there's just so many things, and it's really a supply story this year. When you think about across the globe, we haven't had a year where every country's almost all 8 cylinders where we're getting full production. And that's where we are right now. It's also too a bit of a dichotomy in the US is that you've got we're building corn stocks, but the world is not. It's just the opposite in soybeans, where the world's building soy stocks and we're not. And so it's a very weird world, but the fact is we just have so much supply in the world, that's just going to keep prices, really on the defense.
Let's switch back. Okay. So frankly, this is not being talked about enough. I don't know if you feel this way. I knew that there were issues with crops. I knew that there were farmers facing troubles. I honestly only kind of in the very dimmest awareness in the back of my mind even remembered that there were all the sort of soybean trade issues with the last sort of Trump administration. And that's on me, right? Short memory. I think many Americans suffer from short memory syndrome, SMS. So learning that it was so impactful back then, and that basically this whole industry has tried for more than half a decade to get back on its feet, only for Trump to win on their vote, only for him to win on their vote, and then cut their legs out from underneath them. Let me just find my center. So Trump really screwed these folks back in his first term, continues to screw them actively right now. And one big signal really from this type of event is that the world moves on. No soybean bookings on the papers. Who do you think the farmers voted for, right? Next quick story. I called this out in the headline. The saddest news I've received recently. Trump's death was just a rumor. He hid away from the public view for a couple of days, and then the wild speculations began to fly around the internet. And, then he sadly reappeared and denounced it all as fake news. But why is that significant? Why do I even call out that there was this rumor? It's sort of wild that this is even like newsworthy stuff, but that's the world that we live in. So why is it significant? Okay, look at how precarious the digital information economy is. Look how risky misinformation in politics is. Okay, the RFK hearing is just more fascist jazz, in case you weren't listening to that. Good Lord, talk about misinformation. You need to be skeptical. We all must be skeptical. We all need to check our sources. You cannot just blindly believe things, especially in mainstream media. Once upon a time, these were sources of truth. Now they are actively amplifying misinformation. And it's up to you, the lovely humans who have thinkers in there, to take some time and just make sure that you're filtering in some way. Okie dokie. So let's talk about a few other domestic highlights. I'm going to go a little bit faster here because there's lots to talk about. Reuters has a few major headlines. Again, Trump and RFK with the vaccine stance. Basically, Trump backs RFK Jr.'s vaccine stance, which is no vaccines ever, never, none of the time. There's been some debates about non-compete bans, so that's happening in different parts of the states. Lots of immigrant enforcement issues. It's just constantly happening all the time. They're still basically yoinking people out of Home Depot parking lots. They're pulling people out of car washes. It's just blatant abuse of people's civil rights. And and the courts, honestly, are still punching as hard as they can. They're trying to rein in some of Trump's worst impulses, but it's with varying degrees of success. Shout out to Democracy Docket and Mark Elias and those folks. They're out there on the front lines, and some folks give them the attention they deserve. But I just want to again salute you all in the legal field for really being like our last line of defense, and maybe our only line of defense for the moment. Next on the docket, health and safety developments. Our friends at CBS report salmonella recalls, which is just lovely. I don't even want to think about where that's coming from. Probably our own beef, now that the USDA has been gutted and turned into a shell of itself. The rise of phone locking pouches is a thing that's happening in schools. Yeah, honestly, I dare say it's about time, right? The misinformation distraction devices that we keep in our pockets, basically destroying the youth of America. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, phone locking pouches. These are happening. Basically, they're making kids lock their phones up while you're in class and force you to pay attention. I love it. Honestly, I love it. Being forced to pay attention, I think, is a valuable life skill because many, many times in your life will you have to pay attention to something that you do not want to, do not like, have no interest in, but must retain the information. God forbid you did not get any training as you grew up, in which case you might be hopeless as an adult. Sorry to hear that. Let's boogie on down to World News Street. And I'm going to go even faster than I did with domestic highlights because I've got this nice little list of all these interesting things. Feel free to investigate more of these on your own time if you find any of these, interesting, if they catch your ear. But here we go. World news, rapid fire. Israel intensified operations further in Gaza, meaning more mass evacuations. No bueno. Taiwan Strait. Canadian and Australian warships pass through, making a big angry from our friends in China. The Venezuelan jets flew extremely close to U.S. Navy vessels in a pointed show of force. Yeah, things are heating up on the old world stage, shall we say. Deadly landslide in Sudan. Not many people are aware of any news in Africa ever. This was actually quite deadly and fairly significant. Not great. This is just a fun one to say, and I'm sorry because it's horrifying, but at the same time, the fatal funicular crash in Portugal, I'm happy that I didn't sharply exhale after saying that. It is unfortunately no fun. The funicular, and I hope I'm saying that right, apologies to the fabulous Portuguese. My mother loves Portugal, talks about the country as though she still lives there. It's an interesting trolley type. That's what a funicular is, the trolley. So there was a real bad crash in Portugal. Very, very no bueno. Ongoing developments in Amazon indigenous rights and Brazilian politics. That is quite the proverbial shit show. Not even proverbial. That is just literally a shit show. The Amazon indigenous constantly have to push as hard as they can against Brazilian politics to try to preserve their land, preserve their rights, et cetera, et cetera. They're basically treated like the lowest of the low-class citizens, like they have no rights. Terrible. And then last but not least, Nepal has some, real shit go down. Some real shit. So real that it's going to be the main story of next week's episode. I'm very excited. I'm not super excited at the same time because I hate talking about this stuff, but we're going to have our first interview on next week's show. Nepalese immigrant Sal, who is a super cool guy, super animated. I love talking to him. But yeah, so we will feature him and his commentary on the Nepalese situation. Here's the super, super broad strokes. There was a protest. The protest went quite foul. People were shot. Lots of people injured. Lots of people died. The folks involved in the protesting went home to process this information. And collectively, an intense uprising happened where a lot of young people, a lot of Gen Zers, we're talking 20s, went out and expressed their displeasure is the most diplomatic way that I can phrase this. Basically, they ransacked buildings, they ransacked and burned buildings. They beat the sweet bejesus out of corrupt government officials, especially the ones that were most corrupt. My understanding is that includes people in the treasury, sort of finance type stuff. Lots of real bad corruption. Sound familiar? Anyway, can't talk about that one this week. There's too much to talk about. We'll get into that next week. But I wanted to share there is a lot of world shit going down. And I keep saying that. I'm going to try not to swear so much moving forward. But it's hitting the fan, y'all. It is hitting the fan. Na. Cool. Okay, let's keep cruising. So what else is happening in socials this week? We've got some fun stuff going on. India Times, who, I pull a couple of articles from there. Turns out that may or may not be a good decision based on my Nepalese friends' remarks. It's sort of the Fox of Southeast Asia. But anyway, India Times, naturally, got some social stuff going on. BTS member Jungkook, or Youngkook. I apologize, my South Korean is mediocre at best. But this fellow from BTS explodes in mentions on X around his September 1st birthday. So this was a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, Trump was also trending. But it was, in this case, this time, due to his death rumors. Whee! Which we know were fake. Boo! Anyway, Jungkook scored like 20 million mentions or something hilariously amazing. And new album plus a 2026 tour. Another big one, unfortunately trending in social. And this spans a few gaps, I think. Trolling as political strategy is surging. And I hate that. But you should know that it is only going to get worse from here. So Axios reports social media platforms like TikTok and even LinkedIn, in case you didn't know, they're becoming battlegrounds for political messaging, and it's oftentimes through snark and satire. So you have examples like Newsom is basically doing a Trump. You have many an influencer doing many a misinformation, such as the late CK. As I said, we're not going to talk about him. But I will say that a lot of the snark and satire aimed at some of our figures in the administration can be kind of cathartic. Like the mockery sometimes just feels so good. And they often, like, I'm also really kind of satisfied by the fact that the Fox News narrative is that they don't understand. You can't copy Trump, but they literally don't understand that they're mocking him. They're mocking Trump. We're not copying Trump. The point is we're trying to, anyway, I'm not going to fucking explain this. So anyway, kind of interesting. Maybe not great news, but something again to be aware of. Now let's keep cruising. I want to talk about some more social stuff. I frequently don't care about these things, but, we all, I think, generally love some celebrity. Harry Styles, he gets himself into some trouble with the ladies. Somewhat recently spotted with Zoe Kravitz doing cutesy stuff. I don't know how anybody feels about that, but Harry's a handsome fella. Zoe's a good-looking lass. The Kravitz name was always potent in my household as a big fan of Papa Lenny. Anyway, kind of interesting stuff. And then last thing I want to talk about, trending in social, kind of on the world stage here, are coffee raves. Coffee raves. You heard that right. Literally transforming a cafe into an upbeat, caffeine-fueled dance zone. A zone of dance. Here's the catch. Like, they're doing this in the morning, which, I suppose I could get behind it, but it's basically a nightclub at 8 a.m. with oat milk instead of tequila and late 2000s EDM. That's definitely something you can blame millennials for. Leave it to us, turn a cup of coffee into like a $40 cover charge and a DJ who's one unpaid student loan away from total collapse. Okie dokie. So it's time for some good news. Good news. Good news. Good news. We have hit the fall content rush, ladies and gentlemen. The good stuff should start carrying us through straight to the holidays, and I'm really excited about that. Fall is big for just about every part of the entertainment industry, and it makes a lot of sense, right? Many of us are starting to come inside from our outdoor activities. Many of us live inside all the time and just need constant content consumption, and we need it at a rapid clip because we devour it like Twinkies. Sweet, delicious Twinkies. We've got some really, really awesome stuff this fall season. The first one I want to call out for this fall season, we're a few weeks in, so if you've missed the first few episodes, it's perfect binge time. Alien Earth. I want to very quickly talk a little bit about the Alien series and me. I'm a millennial. I'm a sort of square in the middle of the generation millennial, maybe slightly on the older side. The first movie that I should not have watched as a child was the original Alien. I'm not 100% sure how old I was, but it was probably younger than 10. And as you can tell, I've never really been the same since. But Seriously, huge Ridley Scott fan. I'm a tremendous fan of the alien mythology. I love the lore. It's very cryptic, but it's also very entertaining. To the point that I love all the kind of supporting media. Like I've dabbled in things like the comics, which are outstanding if you like graphic media. The art is oftentimes absolutely fantastic. And I mean, the alien stories are always so good. It's always like, it always has those features of an epic. Shout out to Mr. Reedy from high school. Set super medias muse cosmic hero elevated hair sim. Okay, the 8 qualities of an epic. Cosmic, setting. Okay, so the setting is epic in scale, is over the top. It invokes the supernatural. It starts in medias res, so you kind of come into the story in the middle of the action. Muse, yes, there's a muse. There's some sort of advisor. There's some sort of spiritual guide. There's a character that basically provides this muse-like role to kind of help the hero or the main character find their way. Here we go. Set super medias muse. Cosmic. Oh no, I don't remember this one, do I? Oh yeah. Okay, so cosmic basically is me reminding myself that it involves universal themes. It involves archetypes, etc. The heroic simile. Gosh, let's see if I remember the heroic simile. Basically, like the hero has some sort of tragic flaw, something about them that makes them larger than life, but also makes them human. And they fall prey to their own hubris frequently in an epic. And then it's elevated, right? So elevated in the sense of language, in the sense of setting, in the sense of what sort of themes and material the content talks about. Oh, I've reversed the order a little bit. Okay, so the previous one was hero. All right, Mr. Reedy, I think I got 7-ish out of the 8. Hopefully you can forgive me for not remembering all of it, but high school English. Anyways, back to the story at hand. Alien Earth is incredibly epic. At least it feels that way to me. And in this case, I actually mean it by sort of the literal word, not like epic as a synonym for gnarly or tubular, bodacious, and other such 90s classics. Okay, so if you're looking for a great thriller, excellent sci-fi bash, Alien Earth might be a good fit for you. And the other reason why Alien Earth, I think, is timeless, there is an extremely fantastic actor. The real reason you should watch Alien Earth is purely for Babu Sise, who, I hope I'm saying your name right. He plays a character called Kumi Moro. Basically, the character's just called Moro most of the time. They tend to go by last names for whatever reason. Moro has the most spectacular deadpan looks of almost any character in any media, period. I would put him up against the greatest deadpanners of all time. I put together a quick little slideshow to put it into perspective for you. He can really kind of capture that sort of desperate kind of hopelessness, right? That sort of impending doom, unending dread, inescapable fate with a deadpan as pure as snow. Look at this. This deadpan provides that hint of disgust, that sort of snarl of frustration, that kind of like, what the fuck of seeing something crazy on the internet. Oh, let's proceed. Here's another deadpan that I absolutely adore. This is that almost like whodunit deadpan. Kind of like a, I can't believe I'm seeing the sass on these bananas deadpan. Yeah, this is a really nice one. So this is the piloting deadpan. This is that pure concentration. Leave me alone. I'm in my happy place as behind someone gets eaten by an alien. He's in the zen of deadpan. Another great deadpan. This one gives you a little taste of confusion, right? This gives you a smattering of another sort of, I don't know, questionative, prerogative, find his way deadpan. This is another great deadpan. This is that like super interrogative, whodunit deadpan. This is that I'm on to you. I'm figuring you out deadpan. And then I'm going to seal the deal with a coup de grace. This is the Ridley Scott meets Breaking Bad. We've got the orange and the blue filters combined to give you slightly angry deadpan. And slightly angry deadpan, it just gives you that gentle kiss of intense fury of 1,000 Suns. It's just, I mean, all the deadpans of this man are spectacular, and it's worth watching every episode just to see how many different ways he gives you this kind of like spot on the camera deadpan look. I absolutely love it. All right. So, a little entertainment, good news for the folks today. Next in the good news front, especially for you climate aware types, I'm wearing my Swamp Thing climate-minded t-shirt. Hopefully you're all in on that. I was really pleased to see this because there's a wash of bad news out there, but I love the thought of really cool electric vehicles being commonplace. Great news. Electric vehicle sales are up, lords, ladies, and any other duke, dame, duchess, whatever you like. This is super cool. Kind of caught my eye. Electric school buses in particular are becoming more viable across the country. And quite the contrary to what we keep hearing from our friends in the administration, ending all EV-related funding. Here's a few stats for you. Pulled this. I thought you might like this. Electric vehicle sales have jumped 27% globally in the first 7 months of 2025, led big time by China with 6.5 million EVs, and then super strong European demand coming in a hot second at 2.3 million additional EVs on the road in the past 7 months of 2025. In the US, we have a modest 2% increase, but we expect that to continue to grow because the kind of EV tax credits run through the end of September, and then Trump and friends yank the plug. So I think that's really cool. Electric school buses are becoming more feasible in the U.S. thanks to a cornucopia of funding options. I love cornucopias. Love food. Love lots of food. So we got grants, we got rebates, we got you loans. We have many ways to empower communities to swap that diesel golden dragon out for a cleaner, healthier electric alternative. I felt great about that. Last but not least, this one I thought was kind of fun. Hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I do. I'm a New England child. I've been in New England for most of my life. New England has quite a few festivals, right? We've been around for much of the history, 200 so years. Many of the New England states are the oldest in the nation, which is fun. And what that means is all the really quirky, weird shit that we like, we make festivals about it. Oh, they're so great. The festivals in New England are a sight to see. I personally, growing up as a kid, went to the Bethlehem Fair almost every year, I think for like 5 or 6 years when I was a youngaling. If you have kids, if you have like young kids, the fairs are so fun. The livestock, all that stuff is fascinating. I personally have laughed until my sides have split, admiring some of the magnificent poultry with their feathery feathers and their hilarious sort of top hats. They look like they're wearing like foppish feather. They look silly. So anyway, I love that. So if you haven't looked into any fairs up in New England, come on down. Fall season is when it gets good. New York State, however, has a fair every year, and I think it's the New York State Fair specifically, every year has an enormous butter sculpture. I think that's super cool. What is even cooler to me is that at the end of the festival, they put this magnificent butter creation to good use. So after the fair, it's sent to a local dairy, and they basically put it into an anaerobic digester. So this big butter sculpture breaks down in a chamber, releases methane. That gets captured, and it's converted into electricity. Wow. All from a butter sculpture. Now, for me personally, I'm excited for lactose intolerant diabetics everywhere. Yeah, absolutely. Those of you out there who absolutely should not, but still dare to dabble in the forbidden spoonful of farm fresh ice cream, punishing your friends, family, and loved ones with paint-peeling booty trumpets, I've got good news for you. Perhaps soon enough, you'll be able to power your insulin monitor with your own farts. And that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next week.